Atun Re, which simply means welcome Egyptian. You have to think, feel, breathe, eat, sleep Egyptian. All of the Egyptians say, I am an Egyptian. Imagine yourself clothed in the royal garb of the Egyptians, standing on a porch, looking over at the great monuments and pyramids and obelisks and sphinx, the beautiful clear blue water of the Nile. See your subjects, as some gaze up in admiration, others busy at their chores. In your kingdom in Egypt, where your seed, your soul, your birthright, where your blood, your sweat, and your tears are gone. Now, it is nice to be important, but it is more important to just be nice. You know the story, that each journey is begun with one step. Well, you have been taking step 1, 2, and 3. To take yourself as a rough, raw, uncut stone and carve yourself into a perfect stone. To become one of the building blocks for a better life. Taking a good person yourself and just making yourself better. This is the purpose of the ancient Egyptian order. To change the souls, the minds, and the spirits of all human beings. To shun aside faith, belief, fiction, and myth, and replace it with reality. What is real? You exist. What's the first reality? If you exist, those from which you came also exist. And this link is your soul seed back to the source of all. What seems unreal to real. But first, you must absorb the sound of this most ancient instrument called the duduk. And let it move through your body. And let it surge through you, fill you. Feel its warmth. Feel the voice. It's a tone like the Om. You must keep stored in your subconscious at all times so that you can refer back to it, even if it's not playing in the present world. This is a gift that you will learn in the ancient Egyptian order. Before you start this mission, just sit back. Put this CD or tape on. Isolate all other sounds and merge into it. While there, you may want to cry. You may feel a surge of joy, a strange kind of stimulation. It's because this tape is in tune with you. It's the voice of your ancestors. All the way back, from mother and father to grandmother to grandfather to great-grandfather. And all the way back to the source of all the original vibrations of growth, of which you are a part. Meditate. Relax. Take 9 deep breaths. Breathing in through your nostrils and out through your mouth. In your nose, out your mouth. The proper way to breathe. Only close your eyes when you feel ready to relax. Envision an energy, a far distance. It's crystal. Its beautiful colors are coming from it. It's for you. It loves you. It wants to embrace you. Open your arms and let the light come towards you. Let it hit your body. Let it penetrate all through your body. Feel the joy. and love and concern and the power of this great energy. See the arms of the energy extending and wrap around you and pull you into its bosom. It's of the great sun, Ra. Know it's where you belong. Know it wants you there. Know that it will protect you against all negative forces. It builds a psychic self-defense. Because whenever you imagine this sound, you see an energy rush towards you. And it will wrap its arms around you and create a whirlpool of pure energy, moving around you in a circular motion. 3 rings, one at the bottom clockwise, one in the middle counterclockwise, and one at the top clockwise, representing the 3 great energies, Atun Re, and Amun Re. This is the loving energy of the inner Trinity, the reality. Let the energy surround you right now. Feel it. Feel its love. Feel its presence. But most of all, feel the power of its protection against all evil and negative forces. Here with you, a child of the Neptune. Until I speak with you again, become an Egyptian in the ancient Egyptian order. Wadu.
Number one, many of you do not know what the name Osawite stands for. And I'm going to explain that right now. Osawite stands for original, sacred, order, inner circle, empire of the Most High. That in itself is, how should I say, a particular name that is extremely ancient that many know nothing about. It has its significance amongst what you would refer to as the 24 elders, of which I am the 13th. I am Protestant in that circle. And we are not a separate group, listen, that are standing outside of the Nuwaubian nation. All of us are Nuwaubian, first and foremost. And then we are Anuwaubian, meaning we take the name of Anu and put it out front. Now, if you declare yourself a Nuwaubian, then you know that you have rendered your life and your services to the Most High. And there are many of you who do not, and at the same time who do recognize the name of Anu as being the name of the Most High. Why? Because it comes from out of the cuneiform, which is the oldest dating language on the planet, which predates your Semitic tongue, be they Hebrew, Greek, or Arabia. You see, the information is also like putting out, number one, cannot be muted out and or denied. There is no one else amongst you in this day and time that's putting out new information. You see, we're going to be putting out a show called Who Else Is Doing It, where we will address who else is putting out new information. And if indeed this information has been fabricated, then that means it can be done. And if I can do it, then you can do it too. And what I say to you is, produce the likeness thereof. Listen, because if anybody thinks that we here at the Osawite can sit around and fabricate this level of information, that person isn't a fool. That person's worse than a fool, because that's impossible. Nor do we have, the time to waste our time or yours to even want to do something like that. So again, if it's fabricated, then that means it can be done. And if it can be done, then that means you can do it. And if you can do it, then produce the likeness thereof. You see? And you will not be able to do it, because this information cannot be muted out and or denied. And if indeed you feel it can be, then produce the likeness thereof, is what I say to you all right now. Because ain't none of y'all putting out anything new. And ain't none of y'all able to, stand against what's being said. Not one. To set things up for the time frame we're in right now. Well, I'm going to, let me tell you something. We're going to give you a new information. The Osawite, Atun Re, that's right. And we know what's going to be called right now knowledge. Where it don't pertain to the things that's going on right now. Get it out my face. We've given you a great deal of facts that are centered around a significant reincarnate, who in this life, her name is Lakeisha L. Lewis, who is indeed the reincarnate of Ishtar II, or Ishtar II, who became known as Ishtar after she aligned herself with Ashtar Command in the desert on a trip that took place from Mesopotamia on into Tamaray, where at that time she was to be married to me, and the marriage itself was arranged. Okay, now, in this life, what we have is a situation by which some 18 months ago, by virtue of the science of alchemy, I personally, along with my Umi, sat in my Umi's kitchen and saw vivid imagery of who I am now telling you is the reincarnate of Ishtar II, performing in what would be considered illicit acts of putting together what would appear to be a very indecent and profane movie that would be considered triple X, that ultimately was seen and viewed in its entirety in a household mirror. Umi and I sat there and watched the movie, the making of the movie, 18 months prior to actually having a hard copy of the movie to be delivered into my hand. Now, 2 days after that, again, in a regular household mirror, what was viewed is the assassination of this sister in a hotel room that was implemented against her by the very same two beings who we have informed the entire family is Lucifer, listen, and his henchmen, whose picture showed up on the MySpace page in the music section with a small print written up underneath it that said, "She wants revenge." And the she that was being referred to is indeed Lakeisha L. Lewis. And why? Because in the same capacity by which all of her mask was removed in Agartha many, many thousands of years ago, her masks are being removed here today for this entire family to be able to see just who she is. Right there on the net. We showed you her pictures, introduced you to her in terms of being able to see who she is and what it is, she's involved in. Listen, ultimately involving herself with such movie-making industries as LeisureTimeEntertainment.com, that initially was called ExecutiveVideo.com, and then went on to being called Sunshine Videos, and now she is actively under contract with West Coast Productions, which any Nubian out there who, if they're being honest with themselves and honest with us, cannot say that they are not familiar with, because pornography has touched each and every one of our homes in some capacity, to which I'm sure, because whether you claim to be of the most righteous nature, 90% of you have these movies in your home. And on that note, I'm sure you all are familiar with West Coast Productions, being the most, how should I say, famous and prolific black X-rated movie making company in existence right now. Okay. Now, the thing is, I have filed divorce proceedings initially the divorce proceedings was filed against me by Lakeisha L. Lewis at a time in which I had not had the copies of the movie her movies in my possession. I didn't even know that the movies were indeed, her profession, and or were readily available on the shelves all across the United States and overseas. She had signed contracts with West Coast Productions destined to make a certain amount of new revenue that she did not want me as her husband to have knowledge of. And what then took place is, in the state by which she was sure that I did not know that she was involved in actually making the movie and ultimately destined to make a new revenue with West Coast Production, she filed divorce proceedings against me, to which I then became the respondent, and to which also I posted out on the net for everybody to see the divorce papers. And if you read the divorce papers, you would see that the clerk of the court's name was Linda A. Ashcraft. Okay? Which is not coincidental, because this is a being who is a high-ranking member in what is referred to as Ashtar Command. Just like the judge who sat and resided over Baba's case. If I'm not mistaken, Jay, her name was Ashley A. Royal, right? Or something of that nature, correct? Okay, now, again, when you say Ashley A. Royal, you're talking about a very, very high-ranking member of Ashtar Command, who, for lack of a better way to put it, are indeed the very same beings who have considered themselves to be the illuminated ones, referred to in this day and time as the Illuminati, declaring themselves to be the most intelligent and ultimately the most powerful beings on the planet, by which here today they have considered themselves to be global management, declaring that this planet ever so often needs to be rid of certain impurities, which is why they orchestrated your World War I, orchestrated your World War II, and listen, orchestrated your Vietnam War as well as the Korean War, you know, in its entirety. And here today, they're declaring that the impurities of this planet that they say needs to be rid of is indeed you and me, meaning people of color. Why? Because they see our children and all of us as being threats to public safety. And the means by which they intend to eliminate us as a race, let me tell you something, many of you do not know anything about. But you all will be finding out in the days to come, because if we don't cover all of this right here tonight, we'll cover it in the days to come in parts 2, if necessary, parts 3 of this same show. And then we will be implementing other shows by which you all can ask whatever questions that you have. Now, but to furtherly express to you the means by which Baba will be brought home, they are as I am about to describe. Number one, I myself, in the year 1989, was arrested in Baltimore, Maryland, after having got off of Amtrak, which at that time I was 27 years old and did not have, my memory restored. I have total recall of all my past lives. I want all of y'all to know that all of the information that the Osoites has put out is not being written and delivered unto you by virtue of the fact that I'm sitting back reading books to be able to get it. No, this information is coming from behind my genetic code. So if you look at the name Lakeisha L. Lewis, what you have here is 3 L's, L. Listen, another pornographic movie star whose name was Linda Lovelace, which again is L. How we gonna get them out is like this. Number one, this case, which starts with the divorce proceeding, will have the ability, number one, to attack the pornography industry at its root. Why do I say that? Well, let me explain. My wife went to West Coast Production after having worked for executivevideo.com, and it was then became known as Leisure Time Entertainment. And at this point, when she signed contracts with West Coast Production, she went to them telling them that she's married and that she doesn't want her husband to know that her money is about to be made. So what they did in the LA area, you have many different, what they refer to as illegal aliens who enter the country, or, coming across, the Mexican border. There's many, many Mexicans down there. And these Mexicans need green cards, et cetera, in order to seek employment. And what they have set up down there is many different places that you can go to get brand new portfolios, meaning your driver's license, your social security number, et cetera. And what they did was to set her up with a brand new profile. Now, there's a law that states that anytime an X-rated movie is made, it must be got, like in other words, all of the participants in the project, their names, social security numbers, etc., 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 have to be documented and kept on file. Why? Because, this is a legal act by which a W-2 form is filled out. Okay, and in this, taxes are taken out, and they receive a legitimate check for their efforts. Okay, now, what's going to happen is I have several movies with her face very visibly seen, and her entire body very visibly seen, that she has a, for lack of a better way to put it, a Sincerian section scar up underneath her navel, which is done in what they call a panty cut. It's done horizontally, a bikini cut. And she has certain markings on her body that identifies her as indeed being who it is she is. When the judge sees these tapes and ultimately subpoenas directed from these companies, watch now, to be brought to court and to be examined, you see, and scrutinized, he's going to go down that list and nowhere will he find her name. And at that point, that company has broken the law. And what they will then do is shut that company down. Okay? And then I'm going to be filing what is called 1983 civil lawsuits against every one of those companies that created for her a new profile. Now let me explain how this ties into buckle. First off, this Montel Williams show was not coincidental. And I don't care what nobody says. Thousands of emails went to that place saying that it's only right that the Nuwaubian nation be able to say their side of the story to the world. Now, the question is, did it occur? No. Is Montel Williams going to give us equal opportunity? No. And who amongst us has the ability to bring Baba's, case back into the eye of the public? No one. Only me. And let me explain how. I have recorded phone conversations of, Lakeisha Lewis calling me, and they implemented using a particular type of software that you can speak through that will alter your voice to sound like somebody else's voice. Now, on this recording, it's Lakeisha talking to me with a man talking to me also, sounding identical to Lakeisha. The recording itself revealed the fact that some type of voice modulator was being used because of the simple fact at certain points the man's voice moves from Lakeisha's voice to sounding every bit of masculine and being a man, where it becomes perfectly clear that something was being done. Now, in this recording, it then says that Lakeisha Lewis was not part of the cult of Dr. Malachi Z. York, and that I should expect all of this to happen because I am connected to him. And anybody being connected to Malachi Z. York, should know that they're going to be attacked by governmental agencies. Now, and when you say governmental, watch now, you're saying govern the mental. So, what has occurred in 1989, I went to the penitentiary and I was sentenced to a 25-year sentence for possession of cocaine with the intent to distribute, listen now, and for smuggling, bringing drugs from the state of New York into the state of Maryland. I stood in front of a judge by the name of Edward Angeletti, who's one of the most powerful judges on the Eastern Standard Coast. Edward Angeletti sentenced me after I signed a plea agreement to receive no less than 4, no more than 7. Sentenced me to 25 years illegally. Now, to which, for 6 years and 4 months, I studied law. I then filed a federal habeas corpus that I myself penned. And it was so very well done that they ruled on the paper and reversed my conviction. I gave 18 years back to the state of Maryland, and my name is in the law books. Now watch. I don't know if any of y'all know anything about law, but if you are convicted of a crime on a state level, you have to do what you call exhaust your state remedies before you have opportunity to bring your case into the federal government by virtue of a federal habeas corpus. Meaning the state offers you a certain amount of avenues of recourse. One, you can file an appeal. Two, you can file an appeal to the appeals decision if you are denied. Three, you can then file what is called a 3-judge panel review. And four, if you are denied, you can file an appeal to the 3-judge panel review decision. Then five, you are able to file what is called a post-conviction. And if you are denied, you can file a appeal to the post-conviction decision. Then you have done what you call exhausted your state remedy. At that time, you can file a habeas corpus into the federal government against whatever state your conviction occurred. Now, I went through all of that. At which time, I was left with 3 choices. One, lay down with the number. And I don't care what y'all say, I was not going to lay down with 25 years when I knew damn well I wasn't supposed to get nothing but, 4 to 7. Or 2, pay a federal attorney to do my habeas corpus. And I had just got finished paying lawyers to do all those other things that I just described to you. So I didn't have no more money. Or 4, do the work myself. And in that, I then started to do the work. Now, I don't know if y'all know, but what happens is when you file a habeas corpus, it goes into the federal government, and all they're interested in is where your constitutional rights violated. That's it, that's all. They look over your petition, and at that time, what they say is, wow, this guy's making sense. So I'll tell you what, we're going to put him down for a hearing on such and such and such a day. If you get a hearing, it is time to celebrate, meaning to take all your little commissary, fix up the biggest, what they call spread, which consists of tuna and noodles, which is a meal that many of our brothers in the penitentiaries live off of, and feed the entire record, meaning all your friends, invite them over and empty your locker out and feed everybody. Why? Because the feds do not give hearings. If you get a hearing, that in itself is a major achievement. Now, that doesn't mean you won. That just means they're going to allow you to come in and at that time present your argument. Now, I filed my habeas. They didn't even give me a hearing. They ruled on the paper, which is totally unheard of. Want to know why? Because it was done perfectly. At which time I was reprimanded back to the lower courts on September 2nd of 1994. And then what occurred is this. I was appointed a federal attorney as a formality to stand there and oversee what the state of Maryland would then do after having been ordered by the federal government to release me. She came to me, she said, "You're being released today. Are you excited?" I said, "Quite naturally." She said, "Well, here's my card. I've taken the liberty to draw up a map on the back of the card, and I'm going to, if you follow that map, when they let you go, you're going to be standing right here. Follow the map, and it will bring you to our office, and I'll treat you to lunch." I did as she described. I walked into the office. The office was very nicely made up, where you walked into an office that has a receptionist there, sitting behind, glass sliding windows. And I went and I asked, I said, "I'd like to speak to Catherine Fry, please." She said, "Who may I ask is speaking?" I said, "My name is Mark Brady." She said, "Oh, you're Mark Brady." I said, "Yes." She said, "She's expecting you. Please allow me to buzz you in." So I went to the door. She buzzed me in. I went into an office that was extremely large, consisting of hundreds of cubicles and a hallway that led down the left-hand side of the office. When I walked into the office, the entire office stood up and applauded. Lawyers applauding. I then was led down this hallway where lawyers were coming out of offices, listen, with mahogany desks in there, applauding, clapping their hands. Why? Because I had achieved something that nobody in their office had been able to achieve. That is a major achievement. And again, I cannot take credit for that because that was set up by our elders. Why? Because the entire conviction and everything that was set up, listen, that I was made to under and overgo was set up by, listen, the same Shriners who killed Donny Hathaway, the same Shriners who put Father in jail or in prison. And let me tell you something, I have the proof, documentation. You see? Now, what's going to happen is, Lakeisha L. Lewis was hired by these same Shriners to embrace me. They came to me and told me that I would enjoy tremendous wealth and that I would have diplomatic immunity without having to file any sovereignty papers, but under one condition, that I separate myself from the darkness. And guess who the darkness was that they were referring to? You all, as my people, because they did not want me involved with any more people of color from that day forward. I said, you know, I'm quite honored that you all would, you know, make me such an offer. But fuck you and the horse you rode in on, and fuck your God too. At which time, 20 days later, I was in the penitentiary once again. Okay? Now, I have documentation and names of people who are in high levels of, of governmental offices here, in the state of California. Let me explain what I mean by that, okay? The same Shriners that killed Donny Hathaway have relocated to the state of California. Their names are Martin Brandonfield, Fred and Martin Brandonfield, Bill Neves, Pamela Pitts, Beal, Linda Engelman, Leon McNeil, and the list goes on and on and on. And let me tell you something. I'm sitting in a club in Oakland, California, dressed in a suit. And a young lady came up to me and she said, "Ooh, I gotta talk to you. I know you must be a pimp." I said, "Wait a minute, sister, come here, let me ask you something." She said, "What?" I said, "Come sit down." She sat down. I said, "Would you like a drink?" She said, what do you thought? I said, give the young lady whatever she wants. And at which time I talked to her and I said, "Why would you want to be a nice young lady like you? Why would you want to be involved with a pimp? Don't you know a pimp is a lowlife? Any man who will put a woman out on the street to sell her body to make him money, that's a lowlife, because he doesn't realize that he's putting somebody's mother out there, somebody's daughter out there, somebody's sister, and he's creating a condition by which his daughter one day will be made to suffer the same thing. And it's all good right up until he's riding down San Pablo Boulevard in Oakland, California, and sees his daughter out there at 4 o'clock in the morning doing things that she shouldn't do." I said, "No, baby, I'm not a pimp. I'm a businessman. Here goes my card. If you would like to do something positive with your life, give me a call." She walked away as if lightning had struck her because she didn't expect me to say that to her. 2 minutes later, another woman walked up to me and said, "You know something, I heard what you said to the young lady, and I found it quite honorable. And in this, it inspired me." I said, "To do what?" She said, "To give you my card." And she reached in her pocketbook and gave me a card. And guess what it read? The mayor of the city of Pittsburgh, California, whose name was Yvonne Beals, the youngest black mayor in America, 32 years old, gave me a card. And at this time, her and I became friends. I would email her every day. She would email me. And as time went on, she was introduced to Lakeisha. Watch now. And then we received a phone call one Sunday afternoon, and she asked me, was I doing anything? I said, no. She said, "Would you like to go to a fundraiser?" I said, "For who?" She said, "My girlfriend is running for mayor." I said, "Of what city?" She said, "Of Vallejo, California," which was the city that I, at that time, myself and Lakeisha, was living in. Now watch. I end up in a room with the chief of police of the city, the chief of the fire department, sitting next to a city councilwoman whose name was Linda Engelman. Listen, surrounded by the very same Shriners and Eastern Stars that did Baba. What you don't know. And how can I, a convicted felon, and don't tell me they didn't run a check on me and know my background before they allowed me into their arena. They knew full well. They wanted me to enter apprentice, follow me now, and told me that I would skip over being a worshipful master and go right to being regional leader of the entire West Coast region. And all I'd have to do is separate myself from the doctors. Why? Because they want to keep my mouth shut. They had gone into the Cosmic record and realized that I would have full memory restored, and in this, all their secrets would exist in my chest, and ultimately I would then be able to start putting these secrets out. Now, what I'm telling you is this. This case between Lakeisha Lewis and I, listen, once I start presenting my evidence, listen, and ultimately attach this to an effort that was orchestrated against me by the same Freemasons who put Potts in prison. Why? Because they wanted me to be a part of them, and then start to present the truth, to present my proof. At that particular point, not only will my case be brought into the public's eye, but so also will Bob's case be brought back into the public's eye, and then the ball will start to rolling. And there's none amongst you who have a situation woven into the fabric of your own existence that is as prolific and carries the same ability to be able to achieve the same means. Because you all have not even been able to get back on the Montel Williams show to bring Bob's case back into the public's eye, by which you all, and, or should I say we all, can finally say our piece.